So the next part is about competitive advantage and how information systems can help you gain that competitive advantage. Previously, we've talked about what competitive advantages are. It is a unique property that allows you as a company to outperform your competitors. And that outperforming could be, for example, with the reduction of costs because you're more cost efficient, because you can offer a similar product for a lower price. It could be because you differentiate from your customers, from your competitors, because you offer a different product, a higher service, and people are willing to pay that premium fee. Or it could be because you have a very focused strategy that makes you unique and focuses on a market where no other competitor is focused on. So a very niche, small portion of the market. So how could you use information systems in each of those strategies? So let's start taking a look at that. Well, one of the things you could do is, of course, doing things faster or cheaper by automating things. If you talk about cost leadership, it means that you are reducing your cost and you're using information systems to automate things. So let's take a look at applying for a mortgage or a loan. If you would do that manually, there are steps involved in completing and submitting the application. The application has to be checked. Then the application has to be, entered into a system. That has to be assessed by a loan officer. Then the person who has applied for it needs to be notified. And all of those steps, if it's a manual process, meaning that every step is executed by an individual, it will take a lot of time. You have to complete the application at home. It takes a few days. You have to do it in batches, to check, in the clerk in the office has to check it by going through them one by one. Then it has to be put into a system. All these checks have to be made manually, and then somebody has to be informed in the end. So they'll end up with a running time of 25 to 40 days. If you use technology to support some of these processes, you can do things quicker. For example, assessing the loan application by developing standards that you use to assess if somebody would be eligible to get a loan, you could reduce that application process by days. You don't, the system could check with other systems like creditors, with central registration systems for your credits to automatically assess if it's needed, especially if the risk is low. So as shown here, if you look at here in the computer assisted application, it would be a lot lower. Let me take that out. Then, so if a loan is pretty standard, it doesn't pose a lot of risk, it is below a certain amount, you could do it with a computer. You might still want to do a high risk loans manually, or you want to do an additional check by going through it to make sure, because it is a high risk, that has been carefully checked. Now, if you go one step further and you say, let's do this fully automated, so we don't require people to fill in papers, we're going to use an online form, we're going to check automatically if the form has been completed correctly, you could see that a lot of these steps will reduce significantly when it comes to time, or even don't become relevant at all. Because if somebody at home already puts data into the system for you, it means that nobody at the bank has to type that into another system. So looking here at the fully automated process, you could see that this, even for an application, could go down to a couple of minutes compared to something that would take days if you would do it completely manual. So this is automation. It is looking at recurring steps that you can automate using a computer system. So ideally, the properties of things you can automate are things that are recurring, that follow a certain heuristic, an algorithm, or a standard way workflow of dealing with items that have a fairly low risk, etc. So those kind of properties you can automate easily. So if it's recurring, if you do it a couple of times, if it's a standard way of working, it doesn't require a lot of thinking or assessing, those are ideal processes to be automated. And it can save you a lot of time, and saving time means less staffing cost, means less cost for your personnel, even could reduce the number of errors that have to be corrected. And that will enable a cost strategy. Of course, a lot of people say this automation also has negative effects on our society because jobs will be lost. So you'll see, as you can expect, that data entry, people who enter information into a system, those kind of jobs will likely be replaced by computer systems. Because computers can do that manually. So this is from research from last year that has shown that those jobs will likely disappear in a few months. A good thing for me, though, is that when you come to how likely the job, and you look at the low probabilities, emergency managers are still a few of the jobs that will likely not be computerized. Don't get me wrong, we still use information technology in our jobs, but because those decisions are not structured, they're not standard, it depends on the situation, you have to balance certain risks, you have to adapt to the situation, to the people, to the circumstances, it's hard to automate these processes. So if you look at jobs that will be computerized or automated, it's especially jobs that are recurring, that are frequent. They can be computerized, they can be automated, robots can take them over, but it's especially those jobs where there's no standard way of dealing with issues. That is something that will be likely not computerized fully. Definitely technology will help, but it will not be replacing those jobs. If you want to know more about this automation and job replacement, I would encourage you to look at an episode from last week tonight with John Oliver. He does an excellent expose on automation, job loss, and transformation of the labor market in that light. So that will be a highly recommended one to watch. Now let's move on to the next strategy, where we said, how can we do things better and differently than others? So one of the ways, in the previous one, we talked about reducing cost by automating things, by outsourcing tasks to computer systems that can do them much faster than humans can, and probably with less errors. So information systems can also be used to identify opportunities in the market. So you can see trends, you can identify how the market is developing, you can see services that could be delivered to address the needs of your customers. That is not focusing purely internally on becoming a more efficient organization, but it is actively learning about the environment you're in to see what new services you could develop and how you can adapt as an organization to best use those opportunities. I'll give you an example. This is a curve from the internet speed. So on the left side here, you will see the internet speed in megabytes per second, and here you will see the time of day. So this was measured in a hotel once where I was in a conference. So I used my Raspberry Pi to measure the internet speed in my room the whole day. And of course, as more people use the Wi-Fi, the overall speed goes down. So to give you an idea, what happened is that tracking this data here at the start of the meeting, there was a dip in the internet speed. It means that everybody's opening their laptops, Dropbox starts syncing, emails start downloading, and, people signing in. So the speed goes down. The speed goes back up because everybody's in the meeting, and then after lunch, the speed drops again because there's a small break before this conference starts again. So people are going to check their email, they're going to go online, they're going on social media. And as time goes by, the speed climbs again because less people are using the internet because we're engaged in discussions, either during the conference or right after the presentation. So people are not looking at the laptop, they're looking and discussing with each other, means less people using the internet, the speed goes up. And finally, there's a big dip at the end because at 10 o'clock the bar closes, people are going to go back to their rooms, and let's assume they're going to start watching YouTube or Netflix or whatever they do online at 10 in a hotel room. Now, why am I showing you this? Is because even with this data, that's just the internet speed, I can learn a lot about my customers. I can learn where they are, what they're doing, when they'll be online, and so on. So if I want to use this to plan my staff or give them training, I can use this diagram to plan for it. I could say, well, after lunch, we should, there's time for us to clear the tables because people will be busy on their laptops. Let's make sure that after, around the discussion, there's plenty of people in the bar. Maybe we could do an offer, to draw people in and so on. So analyzing data from people in your environment, from the behavior of your customers, from your visitors, from your clients, allows you to think about which services you could offer, even if it's something basic as this. And that's exactly why companies are so interested in data. Not just data from their own company that they have about you, but combining it with other data, because it will tell them what kind of behavior do you have, what kind of things you find interesting, and how could we use that to develop services. And that services is essentially the differential strategy in competitive advantages. It doesn't always have to be specifically related to data, aggregating data, or analyzing behavior of customers. It could be very much more basic, this differential strategy about delivering services. So here is a tweet from me being on a flight. I had a pen that I use for my tablet. So it is a stylus that I could write on my electronic tablet. And within that pen is a very specific battery. It's a 4 quadruple A, so 4 times A battery. It's a very small one. And I had a layover in Schiphol in Amsterdam. Now, I was wondering if that battery would be sold somewhere, but I didn't have time to go through the whole airport, try all the different shops if they have it. So I went on Twitter, I asked KLM, can you find somewhere this very rare 4 quadruple A battery? And they said, let me check. I'm going to do some phone calls. So somebody at Schiphol picked up the phone, started calling the shops, and they said, yeah, exactly. We contacted several shops, and we found a specific shop that has them. And in fact, we've already asked them to keep the batteries separate, so you can just walk up to the counter, tell them you're Kenny and we're looking for these batteries, and they will be ready for you. So are they the cheapest batteries around? No. Is that the cheapest shop? Definitely not. But by offering this web service, this web care, they differentiate themselves from their competitors. And that's a differential strategy as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about data and learning your customers. It is about thinking, how can I offer services and offer products that set me apart from my competitors? And one way you could do that is this very basic web care thing. We'll come back to that a little bit later in the chapter of customer relationship management. But just keep that in mind, when we think about differential strategies. So the next part is about the niche market. So how can you do things smarter than your competitors? Well, you might notice a 5 forces model from Porter, and it's already from 1979, but it's still widely used today. So if you look at the market, there is kinds of forces that are acting on it. So if you talk about the buyers and suppliers, once they start working together, they can influence things. If buyers get together, they can get a skill benefit. Same goes for suppliers. They can work together and they can bargain, can create a force against you. At the same time, you have people, new companies that could enter the market, that could disrupt this market. And there could be new products or services that could, replace or outdate the market. And within the market, there's of course competitive forces. So all these 5 forces, competitors within the market, potential new companies coming into the market, products or services that will render the market less valuable or less interesting, buyers of your products and services, suppliers to your products and services, all of them are influencing your competitive advantage. So what does that mean if you look at these competitive advantages? Well, you could look at the rivals within the industry, and that means that they will influence your strategy when it comes to pricing, the products you can distribute, the services you can offer. And internet and information systems have influenced those forces. So again, talking about rivals, Before, you were competing within a certain geographical area, but because nowadays a lot of products and services are available online, you're essentially competing with the whole world. People can buy products from other countries. Services can be delivered to other countries. It makes it easier for people to compare prices between different competitors. So internet and information systems have increased that rivalry within the market. Talk about new entrants, so new companies that are coming into the market to sell similar products and services. So it means that if more companies are coming into the market, there's going to be more capacity in the industry, prices is going to be reduced because there's more competition, and the market share will be reduced as well. Now here again, information systems, and specifically information technology and internet technology, has reduced those barriers. It has become easier for a company to start in the market because you can do things remotely. You don't have to be physically in an expensive shopping street in the center to sell clothes. So it reduced entry barriers for new companies to enter the market. Now customers also, that force has increased because of the internet, people have more choices. It's easier become for them to switch from one store or one customer or one organization to another one. So customers have a better bargaining position because there's more competition. And the same means for suppliers. So because more competitors are available in the market, because you can easily access different suppliers, your competitors can also have access to these suppliers. So before, you might be the one who had those special items on sale that none of your competitors had. Today, those competitors through the internet can also get access to those supplies. And finally, new substitutes, so new products and services, that is happening all the time. And we'll come back to that a little bit later. So the internet and information technology and information systems has created a lot of new products and services that have rendered certain markets obsolete. Think even about things like YouTube and Netflix that are replacing markets that previously sold DVDs and movies. So, the information technology does not only increase competition and pressure within existing markets, but even disrupts them or even makes them obsolete. So let's take a look at a few of these forces using an example. Well, I wanted to use Trivago as a comparison site, but I really hate those advertisements, so I'm not going to use Trivago. I'd rather go with Booking.com. So look at what Booking.com is doing. It is actually addressing and influencing a lot of these forces in the market. It allows you to compare different competitors, right? So you have a wider choice. It reduced barriers because a new hotel, they don't have to spend a lot of money on marketing. They can just get access to this platform, and their services, their products, their rooms will be accessible by all the customers. They don't have to do a lot of special to get access, get promoted, get into a magazine, or work with a holiday company or a vacation provider. That platform has made it easier. Also, the geographic reach and the ease of product comparison has increased. It is easier for you to filter down to look for specific rooms that you want to use, allow to compare between different hotels and even compete directly between them. So those kind of platforms and information systems are an exact example of how these 5 forces have increased because of information systems and information technology. So how do you use then these developments to create that competitive advantage? Well, the key thing is to look at something what we call the value chain. So the value chain is every process, every department, every aspect in your organization that is needed to deliver a product or a service. And with each of those steps, a certain value is added to your product. So you get inbound logistics, so your supplies, things that are delivered to your company, which could be physical products or sources, resources, but it could also be contracted staff or other supplies you need to acquire to conduct your business. So that's the inbound logistics. The operations are building the products. Outbound logistics is delivering the products and the services to the customers. Sales and marketing is advertising those products and services. And service is supporting the customers. And underneath that, there are supportive business processes like administration, human resources, research and development, and so on. The value chain is this whole cycle from the inbound to the eventual delivery and service. And each of those steps, information systems can help you add an additional benefit, either because you reduce the costs, because you deliver something new, a new value, differential strategy, or because you do things smarter. You look at you look at how you can use it to transform your business. So the key thing is to look in an organization at all these steps and see how you can change it. So think again what I said about the food truck example in the previous part. That is inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, sales and marketing, service. All of these aspects have been transformed. They're still buying products and services from companies, but the operations have changed. They're now standing in a drive-through kind of setup. The sales and marketing have changed because they're now advertising, will be here, you can reserve a time slot, you can come along. The service has changed because you can order on your mobile phone and you can pick up the items as you leave. So where you position information systems is very much dependent on this value chain analysis. Where in all the processes you have in your organization can you use information and information systems to make them more efficient, to reduce costs, or to create new services and deliver a new value. So the thing here is that it is important when you do these developments and these analysis that you always think about how to fit technology and information systems with your strategy. So companies and organizations don't always have the time and money to do all these things. Of course, there is an ideal circumstances where you would have ton of information systems, a lot of data, offering very novel services that customers would be drawn to you. But often you don't have the money, the time, or other resources to develop that. And that's intellectual on acquiring information systems. So you have to try to maximize a balance between your business strategy, your competitive advantage, and the IT that supports it. And that's what we call business IT alignment or technology strategy fit. So it also means that if you are implementing these information systems, you should also take a closer look at if you need to transform your business. So an information system that enables new products or services or that reduces cost by themselves will not have a lot of effect unless you also transform your business. So that is often done by business process management. So you make sure that there is a good fit between the strategy that you're following as an organization and the technology you want to implement and how they can reinforce each other. And remember that you can manipulate both sides of that equation. You can change the technology you use because you make different investments or you don't have enough money or time, so you choose different technologies. But you can also change the business side. You can also change your processes. You can also change your focus. So it is not one or the other. Those two things have to be considered in harmony. And we're going to take a close look at that in the next part about information systems and the revenues that you can generate with them.